Which came first, the chicken or the egg? When's the last time you heard that conundrum? If you take this question literally, which came first, the chicken or the egg-laying animals like turtles and most reptiles came about way before the existence of the chicken. Dinosaurs also laid eggs, and those funny-looking fish that crawled out of the sea laid eggs as well. So, technically speaking, the egg came before any chicken existed. So the egg, albeit not a chicken egg, was definitely around long before chickens, something like 150 million years before them. But the question really is, or is meant to mean, which came first, the chicken or the chicken's egg? Well, now it makes for a great evolutionary biology question, doesn't it? It's a tricky question because you need a chicken to lay an egg, but chickens come from eggs. So what's the answer? Well, at some point in evolutionary history, when there were no chickens, most likely two birds that were chicken-like, we'll call them proto-chickens for the sake of this discussion, mated and laid and created an egg. And then that egg hatched into the first chicken. So most evolutionary biologists think that probably the chicken egg came before the chicken. You know, it's sort of like unraveling the mystery of dog evolution. Although we do know wolves came before dogs, no question, because we know that all modern dogs are descendants of wolves. But like the chicken and the egg thing, we just don't know the exact circumstances how wolves turned into what is now man's best friend. And just to digress here for a second, you guys probably know this, but it's interesting. One theory of how the first wolves were domesticated is that the ancient wolves were hanging around the hunter-gatherer tribe camps, human camps, looking for bones or food. And the hunters might have slipped the more docile, less fearful wolves extra food scraps. And then the wolves may have then split into two subspecies, the tamer ones that associated with humans and a fiercer subspecies that remained wild. And over a period of many years living side by side with humans, these wolves lost some of their ferocity and developed shorter muzzles and smaller teeth because there were no longer a need for these traits, and gradually evolved into the first known dogs. And that's a very short story on how the dog came to be. And that's true evolution, right? Not like what the breeders, the dog breeders, are doing to our dogs today for the purpose of creating more dogs. Evolutionary biology is really the processes, the natural selection, the speciation that produced the diversity of life on Earth as we see it today. Selective, deliberate inbreeding of dogs, which is what these unethical dog breeders are doing, is actually the opposite. It's the antithesis of evolutionary biology and increased diversity. Inbreeding in dogs is the loss of genetic diversity in purebred dogs. You guys understand that, right? About the problem of inbreeding. Inbreeding is the mating of closely related dogs, like mating a father to a daughter or brother to a sister. And this means you're mating two dogs with similar genetic pools. And mating two dogs that are closely related to each other genetically, too close to be healthy for dogs. Inbreeding leads to reduction in genetic diversity. This reduction in genetic variation puts dogs at risk of birth defects and genetically inherited health problems and weaker immune systems and autoimmune diseases and heart problems and cancers and other health problems. Many dog breeders use inbreeding to create what they think are the most desirable physical and behavioral traits in a dog without thinking about the health consequences of our dogs. That's not the result of evolution. That's the result of selfish, unethical dog breeders. And that's a whole nother topic, whole nother show. Actually, February 20th, if you go to animalstodayradio.com, February 20th is my rant about some dog breeders and how they're hurting our dogs. You'll like that show. Unless you're a breeder, then you might not appreciate it. So back to the chicken or the egg question. Probably the egg came first. Why are we talking about this anyway? Well, last month was International Respect for Chickens Month. That's fun. Why should we respect chickens? They're just a mere food, right? Well, I will tell you, if you've ever met a chicken, like at a rescue farm or farm sanctuary, you will quickly learn that chickens are not only extremely intelligent and sensitive animals, but they have individual personalities, like our dogs. In fact, I would say that chickens are probably one of the most misunderstood animals around. Really. They love being out in the sunshine. They love being free and able to move about. And it's tragic that millions of these animals, chickens raised for meat and eggs, are unable to engage in any normal chicken activities and are never given the chance to feel joy or freedom. It's very sad. Have you ever watched the comedy TV series The King of Queens starring Kevin James? It's a great television series. I'm not really into watching sitcoms these days. Growing up, I had my favorites, but you can stream The King of Queens. The King of Queens ran for 9 seasons from like 1998 until 2007. And in one of the episodes, the lead character, Doug, who's a delivery man, almost runs over a chicken standing in the middle of the road. Doug gets out of his car to make sure the chicken's okay, but then sees a man with a huge butcher knife in his hand coming out of a restaurant with dead chickens hanging in the window of his store. Doug quickly grabs a chicken and makes a run for it. And Doug ends up befriending and bonding with the chicken that he saved. Just like you might if you picked up a stray dog in the middle of the road. So Doug gets emotionally attached to this chicken, and you see the chicken sitting in the front passenger seat of the truck, and they're hanging out and laughing together, and Doug is talking to the chicken, and you're watching them connect. All this with Bill Withers' song, Just the Two of Us, playing in the background. It's quite funny. Anyway, Doug ends up finding a great home for the chicken on a small farm where the chicken will be loved and cared for forever. That show was called Offensive Fowl, and it was the 8th episode of season 9 of The King of Queens. Okay, so this is my point. I remember watching this episode, and it's not only hysterical, but it's so realistic in the sense that when people get to know one of these farm animals, be it a pig or cow or chicken, they realize these animals have personalities, and they're sentient beings, and they're sensitive, and they're smart, and they can feel pain, and they can show emotions. And they're truly individuals, like our dogs. And then, like in this episode of The King of Queens, you just say, wait a minute. I was just getting to know this individual with a distinct personality, again, like our dogs. How could I possibly eat one of them? And for so many people, this is just how and when a lot of people decide they no longer want to eat meat. They get to know and meet these farmed animals at a sanctuary, or they simply educate themselves on the horrors of factory farming, and they want nothing to do with this form of animal cruelty. And they suddenly have a new kind of respect for animals, and they decide they really don't need to eat them. And we've talked about this many times before. Reducing or eliminating your meat and dairy consumption is not only good for the animals, it's good for the environment, and it's good for your health. So once again, back to the chickens. In honor of International Chickens Month, let's learn a little bit about chickens, shall we? And we're going to make this interesting and really fun, so stay with me here, okay? Chickens are a subspecies of the red jungle fowl, which is a tropical bird from Southeast Asia. And get this, chickens are descendants of the dinosaur T-Rex. The closest living relatives of Tyrannosaurus rex are birds such as chickens and ostriches. Is that cool or what? How intelligent do you think chickens are? Let me tell you how smart chickens are. It's been shown that chickens can count. They can do simple addition and subtraction. They have excellent memories. Studies have also shown that chickens are able to recognize over 100 individual faces, not only their fellow chickens, but also of humans. Okay, don't go away, because I know you want to know the answer to the question, why did the chicken cross the road? You're listening to Animals Today. There's something in developmental psychology called object permanence, which means knowing that an object still exists even if it's hidden. So you show an infant, a human baby, a toy, then hide it under a blanket. The baby thinks it's gone. It doesn't exist, since the object can no longer be seen or heard by the baby. When object permanence is developed in the child, and you place the toy under a blanket, the child knows it's there and can actively seek it out. Object permanence requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object, and in human infants, this develops around 6 months of age. You know the game Peekaboo, where you cover your eyes and say, "Here I am"? That actually helps infants develop object permanence. Chickens have object permanence. Chickens have the understanding that objects and events continue to exist even when they cannot directly be seen, heard, or touched. That's pretty smart, wouldn't you say? Now you might wonder, hey, how about dogs and cats? It's been shown that dogs can demonstrate some ability to remember qualities of objects that are not visible. So yes, dogs have some basic object permanence abilities. There was a study in 2009 at the University of Kentucky, and it was observed that in many dogs, there were a few things that prevented some dogs from finding hidden objects, including if the time delay between hiding the object and being permitted to find it was too great. But in most cases, dogs in the study had no problem with the test and the variables used. Cats, too, are able to understand object permanence, but not to the same extent that dogs can. But chickens have object permanence, and many would say to a greater degree than our dogs. And this is a very cool fun fact. Other than non-human primates, like apes, what animal do you think tests way above all other animals and at a near human capacity for object permanence? I'm going to give you a second to think about this. What animal tests at a near human capacity for object permanence? Crows. Crows. We can do an entire show about the intelligence of crows, but just know that the intelligence of crows may be far more advanced than we ever thought possible. And it's been said that other than primates, that crows could be the smartest animal around. What if I told you that chickens can exercise self-control and delayed gratification? Let me explain. In psychology, delayed gratification is the act of resisting an impulse to take an immediately available reward in the hope of obtaining a more valued reward in the future. Delayed gratification refers to the ability to put off something mildly fun or pleasurable now in order to gain something that is more fun, pleasurable, or rewarding later. For example, I can go to a really fun party the night before my big final exam, or I can delay gratification by skipping the party and study for my exam so I can really have a great time over the weekend. Did you know in humans, there appears to be a link between general intelligence and self-control behavior, such as delay of gratification? Are you guys familiar with the marshmallow experiment? In case you're not, I'm going to tell you about this experiment published in 1972 called the marshmallow experiment. This study looked at the human child's ability to delay gratification and delay self-control. The experiment began by bringing a 4 or 5-year-old child into a private room. They sat the child down in a chair and placed a marshmallow on the table in front of them. Then the researcher gave the kid a choice. You can eat the reward, you can eat the marshmallow immediately now, or if you wait 20 minutes, you can have 2 marshmallows as a reward. So the kid's choice was 1 treat now or 2 treats if you just wait 15 or 20 minutes. Well, I will tell you that the researchers followed up years later on the kids who participated in the study, and the experimenters concluded that the kids who waited for the second marshmallow fared better in life. So the preschoolers who could hold out longer before eating the second marshmallow performed better academically. Like, they did better on their SAT scores. They also handled frustration better. They managed their stress more effectively as adolescents. They also had healthier relationships and better health 30 years later. Interesting. So these experimenters concluded that the ability to delay gratification was critical for success in life. And then what followed were other researchers who replicated the marshmallow test later on with slightly different parameters and concluded that the child's ability to delay gratification and display self-control was not a predetermined trait, but rather was impacted by the experiences and environment that surrounded the child, and that socioeconomic factors played a significant role. So they came to a completely different conclusion than that of the original marshmallow experiment. But it's interesting, isn't it? And you should know that this is not uncommon for there to be problems reproducing the same results in these psychological studies. And this is funny. Listen to this. There was a study that demonstrated how well you can reproduce psychological studies. And the results of that study was that scientists replicated 100 psychological studies and fewer than half got the same results. And there were probably other studies that tried to replicate this study and came to different results. So you guys get my point. It's not surprising that studies came out that were unable to replicate the original results of the marshmallow study. But what is surprising and interesting and reproducible is that in studies where they tested delayed gratification in chickens, chickens could learn to turn down food if they knew they'd get more food later if they did. So, for example, in an experimental setting, chickens were given a choice between a 2-second delay with 6 seconds of access to food versus a 6-second delay with 22 seconds of access to food. The hens waited for the longer reward, quote, demonstrating rational discrimination between different future outcomes while employing self-control to optimize those outcomes. That was one of the experimenters' conclusions. Demonstrating rational discrimination between different future outcomes while employing self-control to optimize those outcomes. Self-control usually doesn't appear in humans until about age 4. And I know many human adults have absolutely no self-control. Do you want a bag of Oreo cookies now? Or fresh-made chocolate chip cookies if you wait an hour from now? No self-control. Chickens, on the other hand, can exercise self-control. And one might conclude that they have a better ability than kids to discriminate between different future outcomes and demonstrate delayed gratification and can better employ self-control to optimize those outcomes. That's a pretty smart animal. Okay, stay tuned for a chicken quiz when we come back. Okay, so now I'm going to get Peter involved and see how much he knows about chickens. Peter.
Chickens.
Which statement about chickens' vision and eyes is false? Ready?
Yeah.
Chickens can see red, blue, and green light as well as UV light. Chickens have a third eyelid called the nictitating membrane that slides horizontally over the eyes to protect it from dust and debris. Chickens can use each eye independently on different tasks simultaneously. Chickens have a 180-degree field of vision. Which of those statements is false?
I'm going to say number 4 is false.
Chickens have an 180-degree field of vision?
I think they have more than that.
Correct.
Ah.
Because their eyes are on the sides of their heads instead of the front, chickens have a 300-degree field of vision without turning their head.
Tricky.
And yes, Chickens can see a broader range of colors than humans, have exceptional color vision, and can see in UV light and ultraviolet wavelengths, which are invisible to the human eye. Peter, if chickens can use each eye independently on different tasks simultaneously, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Oh, it's fascinating. It's great.
So humans have binocular vision, meaning both eyes focus on the same object and eye movement is coordinated. So if chickens use each eye independently, does that mean they have monocular vision and separate images at the same time are received from the retina of each eye? That would be fun to learn about the physiology of the chicken eye, wouldn't it?
That would be fun. I probably know about this.
True or false? The chicken's beak is highly sensitive to touch.
That is true.
True is correct. The chicken's beak serves many functions, including drinking, exploring, defending, detecting, and it has numerous nerve endings. In fact, scientists believe that the beak nerve structure is composed of clusters of highly sensitive receptors and have a sensitivity similar to that of a human hand. Now, we're not going to talk about the senseless act of cruelty of de-beaking a chicken, which often happens in poultry farms and industrial farming, but you can imagine how horrible and painful that would be for a chicken, knowing their beaks are highly sensitive, like your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you call the fleshy appendage, that row of spikes you see that sits on top of a chicken's head?
Yeah.
Comb, wattle, earlobes? How about that's it? That's your multiple.
I'll go wattle. Or
comb. Okay. What's your final answer?
Go ahead. Comb.
Combs
All right.
come in all kinds of shapes.
What's wattle then? I can't remember. You did that.
I was going to ask
before.
you, what is a wattle?
Oh, geez.
Okay. Combs come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and vary according to breed and even the individual chicken. The comb is an external indicator of the chicken's health. A healthy chicken comb is vibrant in color, like a nice, bright red color. However, sometimes their comb can turn a pale pink or blue color, which indicates that the chicken may have some health issues. Actually, I'm reading my notes now. Now I know what a wattle is.
Tell us.
Okay, it says here, wattles are two elongated, fleshy, thin lobes of skin that hang down from the lower side of a chicken's head. Both male and female chickens have wattles, which help them stay cool during warmer weather. Actually, both combs and wattles act as the cooling mechanism. So the fleshy, thin lobes that hang down on
That's wattle.
Can you picture wattles now?
Yeah.
What's a gizzard? A group of chickens is called a flock, a gang, or a kindle.
A flock.
Flock is correct. Okay, what's the most famous chicken joke of all time?
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Correct. What's the answer?
The answer is to get to the other side. That's the classic answer that has spawned a million billion varieties.
Well, historically, the answer is yes, to get to the other side. There are a couple memes that are pretty funny, Peter. You see a chicken walking across a road and stating, quote, "I dream of a world where chicken can cross the road without having their motives questioned."
Yeah.
There's another one which shows a chicken on the witness stand and the prosecutor yelling at the chicken. "Did you honestly expect the court to believe, Mr. Chicken, that your only reason for crossing the road was to get to the other side?"
That's good.
A couple other fun facts about chickens. Chickens experience REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, meaning they experience vivid dreams just like we do. Hens begin communicating with their chicks before they even hatch. When the babies are still inside their shells, the mother hen clucks softly to them and they chirp back. Chickens can show empathy. Studies have demonstrated that chickens are able to show at least one of the essential attributes for empathy. They are affected by and can understand the emotional state of another. A brilliant neuroscientist and our friend, Dr. Lori Kirshner, reviewed dozens of peer-reviewed studies of cognition, emotion, personality, and social behavior of domestic chickens. The peer-reviewed paper was published in the journal Animal Cognition, and the title is Thinking Chickens, a review of cognition, emotion, and behavior in the domestic chicken. She concludes, chickens are just as cognitively, emotionally, and socially complex as most other birds and mammals in many areas. For example, chickens demonstrate self-control and self-assessment, capacities that indicate self-awareness. Chickens communicate in complex ways, including through referential communication, which may depend upon their ability to take the perspective of another animal. Chickens can reason and make logic inferences. For example, chickens are capable of simple forms of logic that humans don't develop until about age 7. Chickens appear able to anticipate future events. Chickens are behaviorally sophisticated, discriminating amongst individuals, engaging in clever social strategies, and learning from other chickens. Chickens have complex negative and positive emotions and simple empathy. Chickens have distinct personalities. Dr. Lori Marino concludes that chickens share a number of cognitive capacities with other highly intelligent species such as dogs, chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, and even humans. Dr. Chris Evans, professor of psychology, what he does at conferences is, quote, I sometimes list their attributes without mentioning chickens, and people think I'm talking about monkeys. Nearly 9 billion chickens are raised and killed for meat each year in the United States. About 376 million hens are raised for eggs in the United States. Unfortunately, the majority of chickens are confined on cruel factory farms, and whether they are being raised for their meat or eggs, they are all subjected to extreme confinement. These animals are denied social interactions and good nutrition they need, and of course they are forced into cruel conditions until they are inhumanely slaughtered. What you can do if you want to help chickens, educate others about these underappreciated birds. I'm Dr. Lori Kirshner. Thanks for tuning in to Animals Today. We'll be right back.